Warning, warning. Two idiots are reading the SCP files over the intercom. Forget about it. Hello and welcome back to Discovering SCP. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
Things have been a little mad. Darnell was infected by an SCP virus. I didn't quite think of it before these words left
I
my
was
mouth.
so
I can't
sick.
say
So
which
first we took a week off for the holidays, which is reasonable. But then I got really
Yeah.
sick, and I wasn't even able to speak with my voice out loud till Thursday of the next week. And then
And
because of our
because of
struggles,
that,
it's been hard to get a
we
guest.
were meant to have a guest this week, to be
Yes.
frank. But we didn't. We have a placeholder instead.
You totally botched the delivery on that.
It was a botched joke anyway. But
Yes. Welcome.
Yeah, real bottom of the barrel decision over here.
Welcome, stranger in a strange land. Placeholder.
They messaged me 10 minutes ago and said, "Are you available?"
Yeah.
Exactly. We're so happy. This was sink or swim for discovering SCP, to be frank.
Thank goodness for Placeholder. Placeholder, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're a name in the community because I see you on the SCP servers. But give us a little rundown on who you are, your style, what's up.
Okay. I have been writing for the wiki for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god. Wait, what the fuck? I thought you were another one of these long-term names like Tan Honey. How are you newer to the wiki than me? Tan, we have to change the premise of this podcast.
No, shoot, what would it have been? May of last year? Or April, something like that. Basically, in the start of the pandemic, I was bored of Factorio and started getting back into SCP. And I was also doing a lot of research into modern problems in AI safety at the time. And so my first idea for an article was doing some sort of 079 rewrite type thing where it actually becomes a realistically dangerous general intelligence. And I showed that to a bunch of people on the SCPD Discord, which I found out of nowhere, and they were all like, "This is too complicated." And then I ended up writing something else. But yeah, that's basically my thing. Is I like starting with some simple, kind of a little bit absurd premise and then extending that as far into the sort of high concept hijinks it can go. That's my kind of brand of writing, and I do the emotional stuff from sometimes.
Your writer has a very unique style. Immediately when I open a placeholder article, I know it's a placeholder article without doubt.
Right.
Oh well, I'm flattered.
Have we read 07910? Do I know what that is?
I don't believe we have, but
no. What?
I'm not really concerned about it's not Reno 79. It's evil computer.
Well, you've definitely made an impression than Placeholder, because even though I guess I've technically been in the community a slight bit longer, you seemed like a big name from the moment I hit SCPD and the other servers, and I know people already talk about articles oh, this is Placeholder style. I know you have something to do with pataphysics, I think, because I remember I was talking about something in the... am I allowed to talk about that place yet, Tan? I don't know. They're doing the weird rollout thing. I was talking on a server
I don't know.
about you, and other people who are long-term members of the community were
much mentioned it now.
We're oh, Placeholder is the pataphysics guy. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know. Sorry, I'm going to stutter a lot because I have ADHD. But
based?
No, so what people mean when they say that is there's the sort of existing model of basically what's shown in Swan's proposal, which is the SCP wiki is being written by a bunch of horror writers and we're stuck in a terrifying universe. Oh my god, the irony.
I don't.
Have we also covered this?
Don't worry about that one. Don't worry about that. But
shit. Anyway,
generally...
sorry. my point is there's an existing framework of pataphysics which is just bare bones. Whoa, we're being written by authors in a fictional universe. Look at how meta it is.
Right.
And I looked at that, and
I hope you're taking notes, Donald.
Yep.
Some other stuff on the wiki, and basically came up with my own pseudo-scientific framework for how pataphysics works, how it influences the SCP universe, what the hierarchical cosmology of the SCP universe and extended multiverse is, and how it all interacts with each other. And I've employed that in a lot of my existing works, and I'm using it to build up to some secret overarching stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about.
You've had me. I'm gripped. It all sounds interesting, but once you said cosmology, you lost me a little bit. That's like too high for my brain. I know like that's like the final tier of world building when you like write the whole multiverse and how all the little planes and stuff interact. But you know what? I respect it, and I'm excited to check out your work. So Tanhoney, how many articles do we have today?
We have dos articles too.
Oh.
Whenever I do the count now, it's never more than 2. So
do we think we'll actually get to 2 today, or just 1? Because it's always a gamble.
I think we'll probably get to 2. Well, okay. I've said this in the past, and we never get to 2, but I think we will get to 2.
All right, you ready for this placeholder? You ready to take the plunge?
Yeah. And I guess I just wanted to mention the stuff we're looking at today will not be explicitly pataphysics related.
Okay, that's cool.
And also, the 2 articles we're looking at are my very first article and my most recent article, which actually is a sequel to the other one. So
this is like this is sort of like a placeholder journey montage type beat. We're like going from beginning to end. We should start playing like the sentimental music in the background.
It's like a Christmas carol.
Yeah. Goes to placeholder past and placeholder present. So yeah, hit us with the past one first then, Tanhoney.
Here we are, SCP-524. Oh, my mistake. It's actually SCP-Integer. Placeholder forgot to put a number for this one. But it's his first article, so I can forgive it.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a rookie mistake. Error. I wouldn't have made it because I'm built different, but...
I just didn't understand that every SCP I had ever read, that the numbers actually were only limited to numbers. I just figured it was just any combination of characters.
Right. So right off the bat...
Is my sarcasm obvious enough?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I made a similar mistake in high school.
So right off the bat, I'll just note some of the CSS stuff because it's a little wonky. On the right, aside from like the main article, there's a little thing that says file, SCP integer, a self-abstracting semioplix. That's all. And then there's like a circle within a circle on a white background.
Well, we've read the article. There we go.
Oh, okay. But yeah, Tan, why don't you spin us off as usual?
Absolutely. Department of Miscommunications notice. A semiohazard, informally, is a fact of the universe that just shouldn't be true, but functionally is. They're inherently abstract and affect the way that we think and communicate about reality. From Intro to Semiontology by S.M. Katz, Esquire. A particularly costly example of one such fact is the operations of YWT, GT, SYT, which I always forget what the specifics of what it stands for. Are perfectly
yeah, we're totally going to sell you this.
Oh yes, I believe they were involved in the dog killer machine.
So they have the same parent company. Yeah.
That's funny.
Which is currently requiring the Foundation Legal Department to entirely redraft Texas corporate law. Note, bureaucratohazards are a subset of semiohazards affecting bureaucratic systems. Such things are facts of baseline reality. They always have been and always will be true. But they shouldn't, and we know they shouldn't. They aren't part of reality because reality says so, but because reality has been pulled inside out by the conceptual nature of semantic equivalence itself.
I'm already getting lost in the techno babble here a little bit. I need a life raft. I'm gonna be the fucking guy in the movie. English, please.
Listen,
Come on,
the
Poindexter.
parts that you don't understand now make sense as you continue to read.
Whatever you say, nerd.
But if you want me to I can break.
No, it's fine. We'll keep going, and if I'm truly lost, I'll bother you again.
Cool.
Alas, there is nothing we can do but reframe our definition of baseline and move on. To purposely poke at the bugs in the simulation is to invite a crash. Read on, knowing that you must accept what the universe says is true, even if it doesn't make sense. 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2.
I can tell if this is going to be a mindfucky one that I should give an audience warning. Sometimes a lot of the audience think I don't get an article when I do, but because I'm still sick, when I'm sick, my brain fog gets very bad, and it's hard for me to think. So I feel like I will particularly struggle with this episode this week. So bear with me, guys. This will be the one time you're right if you say I don't get it.
This guy didn't even understand the Bright proposal, so he's screwed.
Did you see my hit tweet TM about that? It went well, SCP community viral, which isn't that impressive.
I think so. I didn't retain it in my memory.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But before we continue, have you guys covered like 4,000?
Yes.
Oh, we have. Yes.
We've covered all
Okay.
the thousands. Yep.
Yeah. So you know how 4,000 has the colored text in it? Did you like show it on screen to try and make it easier for the readers or something like that? Because this article has
Lonling went out of his way to edit something because that was the last one he edited, but that I don't like. If it's not super integral, I don't know if I'm gonna make Anomalous do that. I'll leave that up to his discretion. But we will try to make a note of it aloud.
None of you said that. He does anything you tell him to. So
yeah, which
you
is
just invited that.
Which is why we shouldn't fucking pester him because he doesn't know.
He's like Dobby. I'm sorry.
He's like, I likes doing the editing for free.
Just there are a bunch of words where it's not super clear what they're referring to unless you know what the color of the word is.
Okay.
So
I'll just say it in green.
Yeah, like fucking Umineko. Right. Have you ever played Umineko?
It's like vocal filters.
yeah. That's what we'll do. Is Anomalous. Okay, Anomalous. You know, how I said I wasn't gonna make you edit. Here's what we're gonna do. If the words should be green, you're gonna distort. Okay, no, never mind.
That's even more fun. That's even more fucked up than your original one.
Never mind. We'll just say it out loud if it's colored. It's fine.
Okay, but we have delayed long enough.
Yes, let's go.
So let's begin. SCP-Integer, level number access, containment class challenge, disruption class influence, risk class
volatility.
Exactly. Security measures. SCP-Integer.
Security measures are in green and SCP-Integers in blue.
Oh, this is going to take a while if we do that for every word.
That's what I'm saying.
Must only be semantically identified using correct identifiers, including name, being, entity, and others. However, SCP-Integer is the suggested identifier due to the others being either redundant or only conditionally correct.
All right. If it's a noun about the SCP, it's in blue, just so you know.
Knowledge of SCP-Integer and its properties should be restricted to only the necessary personnel for containment, including Dr. Placeholder and one member of the Department of Miscommunications, enforceable via anesthetization. However, extensions for research purposes may be permitted by Director Forkley on a case-by-case basis.
Director Forkley? More like Director Fuckley, am I right?
I was going to say Spoonley.
Spoonley! That's also good. I'm so sorry, Placeholder, you have to put up with this. This is my level I'm at.
I did not come up with the name, to be fair.
It's okay.
Note that this file has been strictly organized such that non-abstract information concerning SCP-Integer and/or SCP-Integer digit instances is not directly communicated via identifiers.
Okay, so SCP-Integer and SCP-Integer digit are colored blue and green respectively, so I'm gonna assume they're separate things and not like a -1 of the first or something.
For the sake of clarity...
Oh wait, no, it is a -1, that's why it's -digit, I'm getting it, never mind.
Yes.
Okay.
For the sake of clarity, correct identifiers for SCP-Integer and SCP-Integer digits have been made distinct via blue and green coloration, respectively. As Darnell has said nearly word for word.
Yeah.
Updates to this file, if any, are encouraged to remain consistent with these principles. I didn't mention as well, we also have an image over to the side here. That's symbolic identifier representing volatility.
Apparently abstracted from SCP-Integer's original risk class. It's also the same image as the one I mentioned at the beginning on the right. Tian, are you alive? Who got interrupted?
Sorry about that. As SCP-Integer digit instances that do not possess sapience, much like Darnell, I'm not sure what I was going with that, are to be contained at Site 15. Access to such instances for research of semi-ontological anomalies, aka semiohazards, may be permitted to personnel possessing level 4 clearance or higher. With regards to scientist instances, SCP-Integer digit instances possessing sapience need not be contained, unless, as a result of their properties or otherwise, they inhibit the containment of SCP-Integer.
Okay, so I'm just recapping for myself because there's a lot of fucking terms and colors and insanity, and my brain is not ready. But if I'm understanding this right, basically the SCP, there are -1s. If the -1s don't have sapience, which means they don't think for themselves and of their own free will or whatever, that they have to be contained. If they do have sapience, they don't have to be unless they make it harder to contain the original SCP.
Correct.
Okay. And Director Forkley deals with all this. All right, I can't really put a thesis on this because this is like too abstracted right now for me to like make a hypothesis on what this SCP's deal is. So I think we're just gonna have to be along for the ride on this one, folks.
Well, here we go. Explanation. SCP-Integer is a hazard complex, with hazard has a little, a little footnote here. A semi-ontological anomaly, semiohazard, is a disruption of the semiosphere, the medium through which information about reality travels before it's perceived or measured, which results in reality's apparent adherence to some non-real axiom, of course.
We might have picked the most difficult SCP to read on a podcast format of all time.
No, there's more.
I haven't looked at this thing in a while.
That simplifies incorrect designations and classifications of itself and instances of SCP into the digits.
Okay, so basically, if like someone refers to the SCP wrong, it makes the SCP makes that thing -1.
Well, let's find out. In the event that SCP-Integer is incorrectly designated or classified through any form of semantic communication, said identifier becomes abstracted, which is the generalization of concept, by one QIL. The QIL is a unit of measurement denoting one level of abstraction away from the reality of the situation.
Yeah, so basically, like 4000, where you can't like call the thing or it gets an identity. If you call it the wrong thing, it makes that thing its own thing. Is that right?
Yeah, it'll. Yeah, it's going to explain it.
Okay, cool.
The new abstracted identifier is retroactively incorporated into the construct as correct. Additionally, its respective medium of communication will become an instance of SCP-Integer digit. Lesson is what the footnote says. And it says that in bright red as well.
Yeah, it's in red, so just...
So that means it's a truth if we're going by Umineko rules.
Maybe do not take Umineko rules here. The consequences of SCP-Integer's effect are as follows. SCP-Integer has always been, and will always be identified using names that is retroactively caused to be factually correct, and the use of any other identifier is considered incorrect. This is also true of SCP-Integer digit instances. Incorrect identification of the SCP-Integer from baseline perspective has never occurred, due to retroactive creation of objective fact. However, the state of this file indicates that it has been published with incorrect designations multiple times, and subsequently became an instance of SCP-Integer digit. Due to its tendency to make useful labels and categorizations redundant, SCP-Integer poses significant nomenclative difficulties to Site-15 documentation and personnel. Due to its semantic nature, SCP-Integer shares similarities with memetic hazards, and a single incorrect designation could lead to the rapid propagation of SCP-Integer digit throughout Site-15 and its documents, crashing file systems and potentially causing several other containment breaches by preventing effective communication. Other known correct identifiers for SCP-Integer include thing, construct when referring to semantics, challenge when referring to containment, influence when referring to potential destruction, volatility when referring to immediate risk, hazard complex when referring to semi-ontological phenomena.
Can I get a quick recap on what the semi-ontological thing was again? Because we read that earlier.
Okay, so as simple as I can make it, you as a biological creature have a certain set of perceptions that you can have. You perceive the universe in a certain way. And when you receive information about the universe, only some of it is actually sensed, right? Like we can only see a certain visible spectrum of light, right? So the way that we experience the universe is defined by the set of perceptions that we can have, which is called an Umwelt, okay? The set of all possible Umwelts of all creatures that exist in the universe is the semiosphere. So you can think of the semiosphere as a filter that information about the universe passes through before it actually becomes a conscious being's experience of the universe.
So rather than it being filtered through the limited like abilities of a creature, it's being filtered through like a third party.
Yeah, basically there's the semiosphere says like here are the ways that all biological creatures in the universe can interpret data about the universe. And then A semi-ontological anomaly or semiohazard is someone, or not someone necessarily, but there's some disruption in the semiosphere which causes everyone to perceive something as true, even though it really shouldn't be true.
So it's not related to ontology, because I thought it was like semi-ontology. You were trying to go off.
So it's a pun. It's a pun. So it's semiotics, but it's also semi-ontological because it's half real.
Okay, I got you. All right, I'm learning. Taking my ass to school.
Okay. Restricted per Protocol 4000-issue. Forbidden. When referring to narrative and or pataphysical elements, which of course links to SCP-4000, aka taboo.
Ooh.
An issue when referring to difficulty. See Addition Integer letter.
I'm sorry, did you say integer?
No, you're insane. SCP-INTEGER is a designation for things, including both items and beings that have served as a medium of communication.
And those are green, so now they're talking about the -1s.
Yeah.
Okay.
That have served as a medium of communication for an incorrect designation or classification of SCP-INTEGER. Upon becoming an instance of SCP-INTEGER, it's identified as similarly abstracted by SCP-INTEGER. Incorrect identifications of the SCP-INTEGER instances will be abstracted, but their respective media of communication do not become further instances. The following is a list of known instances of SCP-INTEGER. We have the correct identifiers and the non-identifying explanation on either side here. So we begin with file, access when referring to protocol, security measure when referring to protocol, explanation when referring to descriptiveness, restriction when referring to reduced access, erased when referring to expungement, addition when referring to new content, inquiry when referring to gathering knowledge, and the explanation is contains electronic information concerning SCP-INTEGER.
Okay. So for example, this article itself, this document in universe is a -1 instance because
and the words special containment procedures have been abstracted to security measures.
I got you.
Page, sheet, which contains physical information concerning SCP-INTEGER and is composed of cellulose pulp. Instruments. It is unknown whether this identifier is considered an abstraction of the conventional identifier for instrument, or if it was semantically conflated with its homonym, the woodwind instrument. Contains auditory information concerning SCP-INTEGER used for inquiry. Display. Shows electronic information is connected to a computer. Scientist or researcher, inquisitor when referred to gathering knowledge. See Addition Integer letter. At the time of writing, 3 of these instances exist, either currently or previously employed at Site 15.
So even people who were working on this SCP, by its nature, because they were related to it, became -1 instances.
Well, when you speak an incorrect term, you serve as a media of communication for an incorrect term, and therefore become a -1 instance.
So if someone says, I'm something of a scientist myself on this SCP, then they have made themselves that.
Well,
no, you have to.
If you call SCP-INTEGER an incorrect term...
these are the correct ones. These are the ones you're allowed to use.
Yeah, so this is, these are the ones that are allowed for the -1s. But the idea is if you call a -1 something wrong, you don't become a -1, but your words still get retroactively changed, so you called them something right. But if you call integer something wrong, then you become a -1 instance.
Okay, so if you call a -1 something wrong, then you just get corrected. If you call the original wrong, then you become a -1.
Correct.
Now I'm getting it. See, aha.
And then this is a list of things that have become -1 instances.
Okay. I've got you. So that's why they're saying these are the words you have to use, or else it'll get changed anyways.
Yeah, and before we move on to the last one on this list, I just want to look again at the instrument footnote quickly. I don't think anyone gets this pun except me. But the joke is the original word for the thing was recorder, like it's an audio recorder, right?
But it's an instrument, like an instrument for collecting data.
Instrument.
And now they can't tell because it's auditory if it's a recorder or if it's like an instrument.
Or is it the woodwind instrument a recorder? Right.
I got you. I got you.
Nice. And then the last one is Dr. Placeholder McDoctorate PhD, Dr. PhD McPhD PhD, or any combination of at least two components of the above names ordered left to right. Site 15 Director.
Dr. PhD, that's actually pretty good.
No, instance is unique in that only proper noun or title designations are corrected. Dr. Placeholder is legally unable to change this, as it is an objective fact that this is his name. Punishment.
Wait, I'm confused.
Yeah, there's a footnote that says punishment in red.
So why did his name? So his name wasn't placeholder before; it became placeholder. For what reason?
Because he did a bad.
Yeah. So, well, the implication is that he's become a -1 instance as well.
So he called the thing something wrong. So the thing made him a -1, and when it makes you a -1, it abstracts you.
Yes.
Okay.
However,
I'm getting it now. I'm getting it. It's all entering through the brain fog. It's slicing through.
Right. And so the thing about placeholder, it says here, he's unique in that only proper noun or title designations are corrected. So if you refer to him as just a guy, that doesn't get corrected.
Right.
But if you try to refer to him
as like Dr. John, it becomes Dr. Placeholder. Noun.
Exactly. You can't call him the wrong name.
Okay, so now this whole SCP is making sense to me. I think I get it. So basically, the whole shtick is it's an abstract concept, and when you try to describe it, you get abstracted, and then things that have been abstracted, when you try to call them otherwise, you retroactively, it's as if you wrote or said the abstracted thing instead. So yes. It essentially takes away your uniqueness, your identity, and it makes you something abstracted further than what you were.
Correct.
I did it! I pieced it together! Alright, commenters, y'all have to shut the fuck up now. I got it. If you were writing a comment,
for every single word, like literally what I did was like, okay, let's think about a category that this word is in, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what the abstracted word is.
Mm-hmm. We did it, Reddit. Give this guy the Reddit gold.
The Foundation became aware of SCP-Integer on 05/05/20XX when Erased, Immortal spoke its true name, resulting in Dr. Placeholder becoming the first known instance of SCP-Integer digits.
So as the role dictates, and you don't have to give the honest answer if it's meant to be a secret, but you do have to give us your version of what goes in this redacted gap here. 20 what?
Well, I'm pretty sure the footnotes goes what goes there.
Yeah, the footnote is what goes there.
Immortal spoke its... Oh, is this thing have to do with 055? Is that why it's like 0505 and it's also anti-memetic?
No.
No, it's not.
I thought I had some.
No.
Oh, right. No.
But yeah, so mortal is in red and true name is in red.
What does it mean when something's in red again?
We don't know yet.
Oh, God.
After publishing the first draft of File, he attempted to discuss it with a scientist and discovered SCP-Integer's pseudo-memetic properties. Dr. Placeholder proceeded to use File to derive the mechanics of SCP-Integer's effects before developing more informed security measures.
So this thing's basically like a shitty autocorrect, right? When you try to talk about -1.
That's one way of yeah. I guess you could call it that, yeah.
Based.
Addition Integer letter, inquiry log, Inquisitor, scientist letter, interviewed Dr. Placeholder. Forward. Attempted interview of Dr. Placeholder to ascertain the nature of SCP-Integer. Terminated due to scientist letters' lack of understanding concerning SCP-Integer's security measures. Notes that the file used in his inquiry did not yet contain an explanation deminating accuracy.
Alright, so obviously Placeholder, you were gonna... Yeah. Placeholder, you're obviously gonna be Placeholder, right?
Yeah, I sure can.
Alright, and do you want me to be the Inquisitor, Chan?
Absolutely.
Dr. Placeholder, this inquiry is being conducted exactly 15 minutes after you updated the security measures for SCP-Integer. We'd like to know exactly what the hell anything in that file means.
This inquiry is going to look just as useless on File. I already tried to tell Scientist, you can't, unprofessionalism erased, which is a swear, talk about it specifically.
And why is that, might I ask?
What part of can't talk about it don't you understand? You have the page in front of you, right?
I'm the Inquisitor asking the questions here.
Fine. You see that list of terms? We can only talk about SCP-Integer using those terms.
Inquisitor examines the file. Okay, so how did you become aware of the hazard?
All I can tell you is that I found I said something that I shouldn't have said. That should never be said, ever.
Unhelpful, but duly noted. Could you attempt to somehow convey what SCP-Integer does with a little more clarity? Try your best.
If you use any other word than what's on that list, it'll take some general category that the word is in and add the word for that category to the list.
Go on.
And it'll do the same to you and give you your own personal list. So I suggest you stick to the security measures.
Okay, so like you can say words aside from file in the rest of the world, but if you're trying to speak about the SCP, then it becomes like file or security measure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand. So what if this thing attaches a list to me?
Be fucking careful. Haven't you had a briefing on semiohazards? It's not just a list of words, it's a list of facts. There's no way around them, and there's no way of undoing them. Your lucky thing is on the list, or we'd be stuck calling you researcher from the end of time, and from the beginning of time.
Well, this is quite the issue, isn't it? Uh-oh, mistake.
Yeah, no kidding.
So is red like an all-seeing judge? Because also on the right, the part that's like, that's all is red. Is that like maybe the entity's like sapience? Like it's the one writing these things?
You're on the right track.
A strong breeze moves through the room.
Wait, fucking list. I didn't write that.
Wait, what? But issue is a correct identifier for SCP-Integer.
I really tried, Inquisitor.
Wait, something doesn't feel right. Why am I Inquisitor?
Whatever you actually just said wasn't a correct identifier until you misidentified it. I've had to call you Scientist Letter for years now, and I finally know why.
Wait, but that shouldn't be my name. What the fuck is going on? Erased is going on.
End log. Closing statement.
But wait, if it only erases things related to it, how come you can't swear?
No, the idea is like the swears, like the Foundation put like swear expunged there, but
and swear expunged
part of the file.
Yeah,
it gets abstracted to erased, and that it said that earlier in the table.
Yep. Now that you mention it, clever.
Closing statement. Evidence would suggest that Scientist Letter's status as an SCP integer digit instance was retroactively caused by negligence of security measures during the above inquiry. Scientist Letter's subsequent amnestation request granted despite minimal predicted effectiveness.
Damn.
Notice. A semiohazardous error has occurred while viewing this file. The following parable may not correspond to objective reality.
So this is our little friend talking about us.
Yes, lesson.
There's a Rubik's Cube at the bottom. What the fuck? Alright.
If 2 1s make 2 and 2 2s make 4, what's to do when 2 2s won't make 4 anymore? When values in base 10 return sums in base 8, that 2 4s make 10 is the sum of all 8. If A equals B and C is not A, the hit to hear that B is C leaves one roared with dismay. When the enemy of an enemy is the enemy of one's friend, and hope of any clarity yields chaos in the end. Such is a punishment for those who wander too far from the path of the forest without name, and seek knowledge that is best left unknown. For your crimes of naming that which ought not be named, you must accept that reality doesn't always make sense. Logician.
Ooh. Logician's trick. And then there's a little Rubik's Cube.
Click on the Rubik's Cube, and that takes you to another article.
And that takes you to another article, clever. But that's not the one we're reading,
That's the next
right?
article that we're going to... No, it is.
The one as he just said.
Well, wait, before we read that, I have to go and upvote the first one and give my rating and my thoughts. So I gotta say, this one, I think would have been a lot easier to appreciate if I didn't have brain fog and sick, but being able to work it out loud with you and get my way through it. I've got to say, it's a clever article. I also think, especially if this was your first article, it's a pretty big hit. I don't know how much crit you got or if someone helped you with the CSS, but regardless of what level of help there was, or especially if you did this all on your own, this is pretty amazing for a first take.
It's had a couple updates CSS-wise since then, and I've made a couple corrections, and obviously the Rubik's Cube wasn't there until the article that it
right.
But
I was actually surprised to see the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, I gave that one an upvote. I would give this a 9 out of 10, I would say. Maybe a 10 out of 10. I only don't give it higher on our scale because I think it's a little confusing for the average person, and the colors can get tricky to keep track of, especially in an audio format, but I think This is a banger work placeholder. Good job.
Thank you very much.
And now we can move on to. Oh, any thoughts from you, Tan?
I really like this. I really do enjoy your article's placeholder. Something that I admire is like, yeah, I understand you get a lot of like criticism saying like about the style of it, the sort of heavy sort of. I don't want to say technobabble because it all has sort of meaning, but
Sure, but
you sort of just refuse to change it, and I do like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know. Like when I see a word that I haven't seen before, my immediate thing to do is like, okay, etymologically, like let's break down the parts of this word and where it might come from, and I can usually intuit things that way. So my brain kind of expects people to do that with SCP terminology, and not everyone wants to do that or is good at doing that. But
I will ask, can you get a bit closer to your mic? We're having trouble picking you up on
Sorry.
the OBS. There we go.
Test.
Yep.
Yeah. I know my style isn't for everyone, but I don't know. I write stuff that makes me happy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mad respect. So this next one, I'm doing a quick scan, and this looks long, and we're about 36-ish minutes in. Do you think we're going to be able to do this, Tan? Should I like not quip and just try to get through the reading?
I think we have more than enough time.
Okay. Let's make it happen.
Clueless. Let's get into it. I didn't quite catch the title for this one. Let me go back to my little sheet. This one's called Misplaced.
Yep.
Okay, let's get into it. So, is there anything we should know, like, behind the scenes about the previous article, just to, like, enhance our understanding of this one, or?
The colors still seem relevant. I'm seeing some colors.
I feel like we have a pretty good understanding of the last article. I mean, we didn't touch on the implication that this logician entity is somehow related to the 4000 to taboo, right? And the reason placeholder is different from every other integer digit instance is because he is the one who first discovered it, and integer is some sort of like curse put on him by the logician entity for finding out some information about the 4000 forest that he wasn't supposed to know.
All comes down to names. Names.
You are viewing a document originating from TL6416X9C38DAU7E.
Hold on, what number was the first SCP? 5242?
Yeah.
SCP integer be like pronouns? I'm anti-nouns.
Which refers to itself as TL001, the prime timeline. Recall that this naming convention is relative, and this document does not describe your respective TL001. So it's potentially a document from a universe not our own. Interesting.
Oh, damn. Collab with the whole to another world when?
SCP-6416, Cataclass, Level 5, Transtemporal. Containment Procedures. The abuse of SCP-6416 by Foundation personnel for transtemporal communication is prohibited under Articles 2 to 4 of the 1981 Multi-Foundation Coalition Agreement, which, of course, I know all about. Intentional offenders threaten the individuality of distinct timelines are to be sued to the extent of RCT-triangle T iteration
No,
crimes.
it's RCT Delta T, buddy.
That's a
you could just call them Delta T or the Temporal Anomalies Department.
Okay.
Dude, do they not like have science class in Britain? You can't do Roman numerals. You can't do like Greek alphabet symbols.
Why would that be science?
Or
because Delta T is change in time.
Yeah.
Of course I knew that.
Clearly he did.
To our stupid viewers.
Delta means difference.
Dude, basically. British education must like be non-existent, or like Tan just wasn't a part of it.
I didn't do very well. SCP-6416-Cube, which we have our first footnote of, I'm sure, of many. It says, this document is, and should continue to be, written in adherence to the security measures described within file SCP-Integer. Please ensure you are familiar with such measures before proceedings. This is a straight-up sequel here, yeah.
Nice.
Are to be isolated from unsupervised use where possible. Should retrieval of any instance become feasible, it is to be rendered dormant via chronological dissociation and extended storage in the oblique possibility wing. Research is permitted in Solar Systems the containment of SCP-6416 and similarly threatening phenomena. Once per respective annum, all relevant iterations of the individual most commonly known as placeholder McDoctorate must submit all puzzle cubes in their collection to their respective RCT-Delta T iteration for inspection. And we also have a picture of many Rubik's Cubes up above.
Is this the next part of his curse? He can't use Rubik's Cubes anymore?
Well, it seems like he has to use too many. An instance of Dash Cube among POI 5242 iteration collection. So, known aliases include Mr. Place, the Doc Holder, Technician John Doe, Dr. Abstract Abby Medoctorate, Researcher Place M. Do Know It All, Person the Scientist, Sir Mac Doctorium, Holder of Places, Blankface McBoxhead, Director Esoterica Eccentric, PHMD, or 056 Cycle 4.
Oh.
This individual must, crossed out never, be promoted to Overseer or Anomalous status.
So he must be promoted to Overseer.
He must.
Congrats on the promotion.
Please.
Thanks.
Update. All documentation regarding SCP-6416, SCP-Integer, and the aforementioned individual will be distributed to all possible coalitional iterations of RCT-Delta T for containment study. I couldn't tell you. I'm getting some multiverse shit. It's Doctor Placeholder, No Way Home.
I'm getting that this entity is like increasing its level of fucking with Placeholder because these like new aliases seem a lot more playful than the last ones.
Oh, that's what I got. What I understood was that these are like the fucking Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield placeholders.
Exactly.
From, like, other universes.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Yeah.
So rather than aliases, these are just like wacky versions.
Avengers Assemble. Into the placeholder verse. There we go. How many Marvel references can we squeeze in for maximum, what's the word I'm looking for? Algorithm?
I don't know. This is just like my favorite show, The Falcon and the Winter.
Can I say it? I actually feel like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is one of the weaker Marvel entries. It's kind of boring.
Yeah, it is. But it's unrelated to what we're doing right now.
Yes, let's go. Back on track.
Right.
Description. SCP-6416 is a multiversal metaprobabilistic phenomenon which synchronizes the states of a countably infinite set of fourth-order puzzle objects. SCP-6416 manifests across a range of universes, hereafter timeplane 6416, in which the following conditions are met. An individual, hereafter POI 5242, constituting a 99.99998% or greater DNA match to Dr. Abstract Medoctorate, is employed by their respective foundation.
So I'm hearing that this means like if he tried to clone himself, they would also be under that effect.
Well, no. So it's saying this phenomenon that is about to be explained happens in a range of universes in which the following conditions are met.
Right, but I'm saying like if one of these researchers were to clone themselves, that would also happen to them, right? The clone.
Well, we don't know what happens yet. We don't know what the phenomenon is. Okay. We just know that it happens in universes where the following things are true.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
POI 5242 undergoes severe identity abstraction via brief characteristic interchange with a necessarily unspecified semi-ontological entity. Said abstraction affects a fourth-order puzzle object, hereafter -cube, within POI 5242's possession, and 5242 is eventually promoted to Overseer status, invariably 056. In any timeline which meets the above criteria, all instances of -cube are actually the same instance as they've been abstracted to the same fundamental state by SCP-Integer.
So is this shit like a tesseract or like some sort of like temporal anomaly?
It is a temporal anomaly, yes.
Okay. I'm actually getting this. Basically, any universe where this happens, the affected cube is the same in every time. Like it's
that's
the fucking.
Understood as well.
It's the D4. It's like D4C-TAN from Part 7. Yeah.
I understand. You don't have to.
No. I know. I'm just excited because I'm grasping it.
Right.
Collapsing the state of... Actually, imagine how fucking a pain in the ass it is to try and solve this fucking cube while, like, 10 million other versions you're simultaneously trying to solve.
I just realized that would be what it is, right? Because they're all flipping the same color. But at the same time, doesn't that mean they can also invent, like, a code and use the cube to communicate? Like Morse code and shit?
Stop! Stop! You're getting ahead of yourself!
Sorry, I big brained it too hard.
Collapsing the state of any instance simultaneously collapses every other instance in the same state, causing the restructuring of each of their respective timelines to justify such. To grossly oversimplify, Dash Cube is synchronized across time plane 6416, and the reconfiguration of any instance results in alterations to the history of all other instances such that they are identical. It's theorized this transtemporal synchronization occurs at the narrative level, and thus supersedes temporal influence.
Nice. Now I'm digging this. Now, see, look, my brain's on overdrive.
We've cured them. Iterations of POI 5242 tend to carry Dash Cube on their person with increasing frequency over the duration of their tenure. No single instance can cease existing without all of the instances doing the same. The unlikelihood of such an outcome practically ensures the continued existence of Dash Cube throughout TP 6416.
So basically, you can't destroy one unless they all get destroyed exactly simultaneously.
Yeah. Which is never going to happen.
Right.
But
then, if that was the case, how do they know that that's how you would destroy it?
They figured it out with their science brains.
I got you.
Furthermore, the SCP's chronological restructurings adhere to the path of least resistance property, enacting the least drastic possible alterations to justify the state of Dash Cube. In keeping it on the person, the POI 5242 strengthens their causal relationship to the puzzle. I misread that as like a casual relationship.
Yeah, just like dating. It's not a big deal. Me and my Rubik's Cube.
Thereby becoming the most probable mechanism for its reconfiguration, which in turn increases the likelihood of their own continued existence. It's theorized that relevant iterations of POI 5242 are aware of these properties and abuse them for parachronological self-preservation. I get it, I understand. So basically, the path of least resistance is that I, an existing person, just changed the cube. So the path of least resistance is that I am alive to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
In TP6416, POI 5242 is eventually promoted to Overseer status. Congratulations. It's unclear whether said promotion is causally... I almost did it again. Causally dependent on the use
I would assume it is, because aren't, like... A big thing I notice in Overseer... I know there's no canon, but fucking forgive me. Is that a lot of O5s are either, like, super or they, like, live unnaturally long lives. That's justified in a variety of ways. We saw it with Spike Brennan. So a guy who can theoretically continue being immortal by using the cube and needing to be alive to use it would definitely qualify for that super secret Shadow Cabal, yeah?
Allow me to make sure I understand, though. The way that would happen, though, is he wouldn't just magically keep living. Something would happen to make him immortal that's seemingly a coincidence.
Yes.
Like, oh no, the fountain water...
Oh no, I accidentally fell in the radioactive vat of immortality at the Foundation.
What a coincidence.
Well, the implication is that... Here, just we'll discuss it at the end of the description.
No worries.
It's also clever because, like, let's say there's a really dangerous anomaly. He's like almost guaranteed to be safe to interact with it because he's not going to fucking die. The cube needs him, and he needs.
Well, I would imagine the path of least resistance is that he does not get to interact with it.
Oh, that's that's actually a good point. Like he's not allowed access, but then he's 05, so
his car breaks down.
It's unclear at this point whether or not he's actually communicating this to anyone else.
Right, yeah. It's just very much inflaming the imagination here.
This is very much a really fun SCP for theory crafting, because like we're not even halfway through this article, and we're just like talking about all the what ifs.
Right.
Whether pre or post promotion, the POI eventually develops a communications matrix which reads and decodes the state of the cube into an unknown form of instruction, like mimetic in nature. The observation of these instructions by the POI results in their respective foundations' development of paratechnologies, which then allow the isolation from RCT-Delta T's influence via interdimensional data shielding. Approximately 44% of timelines within TP6416 become isolated in this fashion, like Brexit.
Sure. Leave it to the British guy to only be able to relate something to Brexit, am I right?
Getting big Brexit vibes from this one.
Yeah, guy who's experienced Brexit.
It's assumed that It's assumed that POI 5242, in serving as 056 and maintaining externally observable transtemporal autosynchronization, is generally aware of its violations of the 1981 Multi-Foundation Coalition Agreement and promotes universal isolation in order to avoid RCT-Delta T's containment attempts.
It might just be easier to call Delta T, I think.
Yeah, no worries. The results of further instruction or any other causal progression of any such timeline is indeterminate. And this next bit is crossed out, but I'll read it anyway. Any intelligently designed data communicated by -Q is likely generated by another instance of the POI in a timeline which would be rendered unobservable, although such a hypothesis is non-falsifiable. That's very menacing that that's crossed out. He's given the instructions.
There's a lot of big brain stuff going on here. This kind of gives me a Brexit vibe, okay?
There's nothing big brain going on in Brexit, so I don't understand that.
I will say we're 50 minutes in. We still have more than half the article. Are you sure we're going to be able to do this?
Absolutely. What's going to happen? Is the sword of Damocles hanging over your head?
A little bit. I'm very sick, and it's hard to keep going.
Addendum 6416-A, Project Proposal. During the 2024 inspection of POI 5242 iteration prime's puzzle cubes, it was discovered that one element had become an instance cube in spite of Delta T's iteration prime's efforts to prevent the conditions of its manifestation. Said instance was confiscated without explanation, remains under investigation within the Oblique Possibilities Wing, which is a wing that is chronologically synchronized with all other instances of itself, thereby heavily restricting the range of likely outcomes of any given structure contained within it.
So for this to work, does that mean any isolated timeline isn't a part of it, or is this like in spite of isolated timelines?
So I guess if that wing exists in a universe, it has to be, I guess. All right.
Well, yeah, unless except for the timelines that have isolated.
Yeah, so the isolated timelines cannot be a part of the Oblique Possibility Wing, but they are still a part of the cube, right? Like the cube supersedes that.
Yeah, the cube. It appears the cube is causing the timeline to isolate.
Borrowing anomalous influence.
Wow, this cube's giving me real coronavirus vibes. Am I right? Because it causes isolation.
I'm not touching that.
But we have a big project here. Project 6416-Prime. Initial proposal.
Is this a Transformers name?
Absolutely. SCP-6416 is a set of abstracted puzzle objects whose states are synchronized across the infinite subset of timelines in which they are, respectively, owned by an individual of virtual genetic identicality to Dr. Abstract Medoctorate, aka POI 5242. Iterations of this individual use the SCP as a parachronological immortality token and a communications mechanism, abusing its properties to gain maximum authorities within the Foundation or similar entity and isolate their respective timeline from any external to TP-6416.
Nice.
It is believed that these iterations are cooperating to intentionally endanger the chronological metastability of their respective causal branches. Proposal. Enlist Dr. Medoctorate in the creation of a communications analysis matrix similar to those observed throughout TP-6416, as they are most likely to succeed in replicating their own variants designs. Utilize said matrix in conjunction with COA-CAT.
The cyclical analysis over countably infinite time.
Exactly. Systems to generate and decode the sum of communications sent via SCP-6416 over the phenomenon's duration. Determine whether more drastic measures should be taken to contain SCP-6416. Methodology.
I will say, I just need to stop, and I swear I'm not jerking you off just because you're our guest, but you have quite a mind to come up with all this, I will say, placeholder. You seem like a very smart guy, and I bet you were going to do some crazy shit in the world.
Thank you.
Oh god, I think I lost him.
That will be the case.
Oh god.
Hello?
What? Hello?
Oh yeah, the mic was like freaking out for a second.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Make it stop! Placeholder! What are you doing? Placeholder! I'm never complimenting him again. I broke his...
Do I sound okay? Do I sound okay now?
Yeah.
Do I sound okay?
Yes, you
do. Okay. Viewers, how many of you survived?
So what were you saying?
Thank you, I'm very flattered. If I can get off my ass to do something, then yeah, I probably will do something pretty cool. But anyway, let's continue.
Hell yes.
Methodology. Unclear, dependent on subjects. Resource request pending authorization of sharing relevant data with Dr. Medoctorate. And we see that the vote, it was eventually approved. It seems pretty split.
Yeah, I counted it. It's 6 yeas to 5 nays to 2 abstains.
I just went below to see the answer.
Oh.
Project approved. Subject greenlit to receive relevant info via clearance promotion.
This is the difference between someone that did well in math and someone who did not.
What do you mean? You overcomplicate it for yourself? Instead of looking down and receiving what the answer is.
I'm just saying, my instinct was to do the math, and yours was to look for the answer. I'm just saying.
like you're insane filled right now.
I'm unhinged.
Project 6416-Prime. Initial lead conference. Speaking, that's at Abstract Medoctorates. Director Elliot Reinders.
Is that reindeers or reindeers? Because I hope it's reindeers.
He got bullied around Christmas time.
Yeah.
So this is an alternate version. This is an alternate version of Director Ilsa Reinders, who the Prime Timeline Director of the Department of Temporal.
Of what?
I see.
The Temporal Anomalies Department, RCT Delta T.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
Forward. Dr. Medoctorate was briefed on the nature of the SCP in question regarding the feasibility of Project 6416-Prime. I've been reading for a while, so
yeah, I'll be Rangers if you'll be yourself placeholder. Which
I'll
speak French.
I'll be a female French version of myself. Yes.
Go for it.
Let's hear this. This is unprecedented.
I'm not going to do the accent. Je ne pense pas tu comprends.
What?
Which part am I not understanding?
The sheer number of combinations which can be expressed by a Rubik's Cube, let alone a 4x4. The task you demand is of universal proportion. I'm a quantum physicist, not a cryptographer.
All the other U's did it. Statistically speaking, it's certain that you're capable of this. Plus, your fields of study heavily diverge across the span of your career.
Fantastique. Getting up from chair. Talk to me again in 20 years when I've solved cancer, pataphysics, or...
Abby, sit down. Wait, so he can call her something that's not placeholder?
Abby Strax, I think it was.
Oh, so, Abby Strax. Aha.
Yeah, Abby is short for abstract, yeah.
Well played. It's me again. Sorry. First of all, you're the only person in this universe who can do it, and that's not debatable. Secondly, you'd be allowing the study of a potential multiversal threat.
Where's the thirdly?
Was I supposed to give a thirdly?
Of course! Rule of threes, etc.
I might let you know what a bunch of power-hungry versions of yourself are using the multiversally synchronized Rubik's Cube to talk about.
Such enthusiasm. Yes, fine. I could use a break from my quantum ectoentropy research. I assume I am at liberty to request the assistance of the cryptography division? Oh, and the AID. I'll need access to my old analytical...
and that links to 5241, which is not 5242, right?
Yeah, that's
a different number.
Something to do with AI, and yeah, don't worry about it.
Oh. Drop something comprehensible, and I can get it in front of the council by the end of the week.
All my requisitions are comprehensible. It is no fault of mine if the concepts I manipulate are beyond others' reach.
Placeholder? Is that a typo? I know you wrote this really complex and narratively fascinating article, but that's a typo.
Minus 100 votes. Sorry.
Shit. Oh no. Oh god, I forgot.
It's over. Please delete that SCP and wiki account right now.
Me, a self-important critic. I wanted to upvote this, but the fact that you clearly didn't even proofread, gonna have to be a no vote from me on this one. Try to improve next time, okay?
Looks like I'm gonna have to hire a hitman.
Also, this line is me directly talking to my audience.
Yes.
Be that as it may, I need to be able to pitch this.
Right. Question?
Shoot.
Isn't it dangerous for me to have observed the info from the object? Said info is instructions that persuade me to become an overseer and isolate the timeline. We are doomed, yes?
This is the first Delta T-controlled timeline in time plane 6416. It appears the anomaly is spreading outside its originating causal branches, and we believe by getting out in front of it, we're preventing you, and us, from going down that path.
End log. Afterward, initial resource request for Project 6416-Prime underway. And then we have Addendum 641/SP, communications log. I can't wait to get to it.
Oh. Data expunged.
the communications log incident.
Damn.
The whole thing is gone.
Alright, and then we
Project
have... Yeah, you got
Oh,
this.
wonderful.
Go off, King.
Project 6416-Prime, comms debriefing. Speaking, Director Elliot Reinders, 59, Oracle. Forward. Having just observed an apparently cognitive hazard communication decoded from SCP-6416 by the newly functional Enigmaverse engine, Director Reinders insisted on the impromptu hosting of the following debriefing. Oh dear. 059, the only internally recognized individual possessing Oracle class cognitive resistance enhancements, happened to be present for an investigation of the engine's functioning. They were thusly rushed from another area of the facility to the recording chamber where Director Reinders was located. Begin log.
Director Reinders sits within the recording chamber, visibly struggling to maintain focus as Dr. McDoctorate and 059 arrive, evacuating technical personnel. 059 instructs Dr. McDoctorate to leave the soundproof room and wait outside until further notice. Do you mind being 059 placeholder?
I sure can. 059 sits opposite Director Reinders at the con. Talk to me, Elliot.
I can't talk! Everything I do puts us in danger!
I can't help if you don't tell me what's...
Director Reinders makes eye contact with 059 and grips the table, steadying. It's Abby. It's all Abby. Everywhere. Everything!
Come on, Dr. Reinders. Use those degrees. Ain't it like a scientist?
Promote Abby to the council.
But your procedures...
Fuck the procedures! This is fixed! It's already spread to us, and it's going to keep spreading if we don't stay connected to those other timelines. They need to be studied if there's any hope of stopping it.
This is not a temporal fixture. You would have seen it already.
Director Reinders doubles over, coughing up blood. It's her.
What?
Abstract. Placeholder. Volatile. Mad scientist. Oh, wait. Is SCP-Integer placeholder?
Elliot, stay with me. Focus.
The paradox. It's the one that kills the timelines. Kills the timelines dead. Abby is placed as holder, the know-it-all, the Doctor face. Doctor Who?
Oh.
Kills which timelines? Emergent response staff arrived to ameliorate Director Reinders' condition per 59's advisement.
No, it's an artificial temporal fixture. They kill the timelines that don't work with them. They all work for her.
59 gestures for response staff to retrieve Director Reinders with danger of continued exposure to her cognitive hazard. Can you give me anything else? We've never had any exceptional chronological readings from Dr. How could we not have noticed if she's significant?
Director Reinders struggling, blinking frantically. They are the placeholder, the paradox, the storyteller. They are beyond time. Director Reinders is carried to the amnestization wing by response staff, vocalizing loudly as she passes Dr. McDoctorate. Dan.
End log. Director Reinders' amnestization results inconclusive. The above communications log is under Oracle investigation, so its full implications can be safely rendered to the Council for consideration.
Nice. And then we got
641.
Yeah, we got one more. I'm just going to skip ahead. Speaking, Dr. McDoctorate 059. Do you want to voice both of them? Play something? Do you want me to take over 09 for you?
No, I can do it, I guess.
All right.
Okay.
Forward. Yeah. Following the events of the above debriefing and subsequent transfer of Project co-lead Director Reinders, a conference was held to determine the project's status and objectives.
Oh my god, please hold
the mic
your
is,
mic. What is happening to your mic?
I don't know, dude. Is it okay now?
I don't know. Just every now and again, it's like...
I think the cord is just a little wobbly, so I'm just going to try not to touch it. Anyway. Okay, begin log. Doctor and Doctorate starts. Transferred? Elliot would do no such thing. He underwent a very intensive amnesticization procedure and needs time off project to recover. He's in good hands. Dr. A crosses her arm, unimpressed. I do not need your overseer mind games. He's scared of me. Abby, there are no mind games. Elliot will be back. What the hell could it have been? Did he forget that my variants are variants? I even met some of them. On average, I'm positively pleasant. Abby. Miss 9. If I am dangerous, I must know it now before I am again exposed to what Elliot saw. You only become dangerous if you get to the anomaly before your respective iteration of RCT does. It appears the greatest danger would be not playing along. Pardon? There are exactly 0 timelines outside of the time plane in which a 4x4 Rubik's Cube is abstracted by integer. You're saying this is fixed? I'm saying something prevents the existence of any timeline in which the object does not cause you to become 056 and block out the RCT. Fuck. They should put these things in the job application, no? Silence on recording. Tough crowd. Anyway, how do we proceed? What? You are the big in charge person here. Is this not your job? I have a suggestion, but I was hoping you had a better one. Not me. I just make the fancy machines while an infinite subset of my alternate selves forms a secret multiversal alliance. Nothing special going on here. So you do have a suggestion? Duh. We send the cube to another Abbey, or we send it somewhere else in the time plane if we don't want to endanger another of the literally infinite timelines. That doesn't solve the problem. It solves it for us. We can solve it for everyone else later. That's assuming ejecting the cube from the timeline is not a criterion for erasure. Well, what was your suggestion then? We play along. Excusez-moi. Please, Abby, not all our transcriptionists are multilingual. Then they're bad transcriptionists. Whatever. There are no true ultimatums. Every scenario has another angle. We just have to... And that may be true, but we're in a unique position here. Playing by the anomaly's rules allows us to study it, how it manipulates versions of you, and what you're being manipulated for. Up to the point of shielding, we can still communicate our findings to other RCT iterations, potentially enabling them to solve it for everyone else later. Well, yes, but that's not me. I am no overseer nor an evil mastermind, and I will not be made a fool. If your only alternative is kicking the can down the road, the decision is made. No, well, you could clone me and have the clone do it?
Hold on it.
What if the clone was sent back to the exact time of my... Temporal displacement is very traceable. Okay, then a reality restructure... I'm sorry, Abby, but I really don't see a way out.
This 059 is like the worst brainstorming partner, just shooting down every idea before it gets out without offering anything.
You're the fucking Oracle. You see everything. Silence. I really am sorry.
And honey.
End log. Afterward, Project 6416-Prime. I was leaving a pregnant moment for contemplation. For
pregnant moment? Congratulations, moment.
Project 6416-Prime remains in active status with substantial alterations to its secondary objectives. Dr. Madoctorate, promoted to project lead and briefed on corresponding duties. Her requests for parapsychological counselling across 8 separate facilities were approved. Project 6416-Prime subsequently resumed use of the Enigmaverse engine for study of SCP-6416. Containment procedures updated accordingly. Addendum 6416-4. Incident reports. You hear the pride of my voice at knowing that's a 4.
Yeah, you've clearly learned my bullying's working.
During operational year IV of Project 6416-Prime.
This fucking guy. See, this, like, a big thing people talk about in storytelling is character development. So the fact that after 2 years, Tanhoney's finally learned how to read Roman numerals truly is, like, brings a tear to my eye.
Significant improvement was consistently noted by Dr. Madoctorate's parapsychologists and therapists, in stark contrast to the preceding period of extended depression. In consultation with Project Advisor 059, it was determined by the Council that Dr. Madoctorate be scheduled for promotion to Overseer status within 1 week, as she'd already undergone much of the necessary training for the 056 operator position. This drew attention away from Dr. Madoctorate's off-site activity during this time. Over the following week, an assortment of mechanical components and lab equipment were gradually brought off-site by Madoctorate, with several items corresponding to those used in the construction of the Enigmaverse engine. On 2028-04-16, Dr. Madoctorate was found seated in her residence due to cessation of brain function, later revealed to be medically induced. Adjacent to her body was a second iteration of the engine equipped with two-way capability, forcing SCP-6416-Q for a series of partially observed states to collapse a desired configuration. All previous communications had been erased from memory. It remains unclear whether the community hazard responsible for the doctorate's death was inflicted by SCP-6416 or herself, whether intentional or otherwise. A final communication was generated prior to the retrieval of the doctorate's body. Nice try, she hid you well, but that's not the story we want to tell. Logician.
The fact that they rhyme, too, makes me very much think the Logician is somehow related to 4000 and, like, the whole fairy shtick. Very cool.
We have the further relevant documentation.
Taking, like, a traditionally, like, fantasy-type setting thing and putting it through, like, a much more scientific lens. It's kind of neat.
Right.
But the collapsible opens to, sorry, the timeline you're attempting to access does not, has never, and will never exist. Please return to the timeline directory to select another causal string.
I almost missed that, because usually I open the collapsibles, but there was a similar link at the end of the last one that was, like, to Placeholder's other articles, so I thought that was just what that was. So, thank you for pointing that out, Tanhoney. So I gave this an upvote. I like this, and I would give it a slightly higher rating than the last one. I'd bring this up to 11 out of 10. Pretty good. It tells an interesting story. One thing is that what I value in an SCP is that it can stand on its own. I know this is a direct sequel, and even if you haven't read the first, it still more or less tells its own story, but the fact that it does rely on a previous article hurts it a little bit for me, but I still give it a really high score because it's well put together, well thought out, interesting. I'm actually invested in your super special OC a little bit. I want to know what's going on here, and I look forward to more that you write.
Thank you. I appreciate us like taking the time to read this in full, and yeah, there's a big puzzle here, and it's not just spanning these two works; it's spanning almost all of my works on the wiki.
The placeholder verse.
There's a big puzzle here, and I'm not talking about the Rubik's Cube, guys.
Just about every crosslink in this article, or almost every crosslink, is a clue as to what's going on, or is directing you to somewhere where you can find clues.
I figured, but I'm never reading a crosslink ever. I can't do it. It's too much. It's too much of a rabbit hole in every article. They have so many. But I appreciate that. You put a lot of thought into the work. I would highly recommend our audience go check out your other works, especially if they're the kind of people who like to, decipher theory, craft, make their own idea, like come up with their own ideas for what's going on. It's definitely worth investigating. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of potential here to like come up with your own theories or ideas and sort of have fun with these concepts. And I think that's really cool. That being said,
why not leave your idea in the comments of what's going on?
Right. That being said, we're already an hour 12 and we still have to do comments. I don't think we're going to get to all the comments because our last video had like a fuckload of them.
Before we begin comments, can I give them the password for this?
Yes, what is the password for this episode, Tan?
So there's no say password, but your comment must rhyme.
Okay. So if your comment doesn't rhyme, we'll know you didn't read.
I'll kill you.
I'll say this, because some of you like to write long comments. You only need one rhyme in your comment.
No, the whole thing has to rhyme.
Okay. Yeah, this is an anti-Raul Alves password.
I'm sorry, but I won't back down on this.
Hang on. Okay, I'm opening the last video. There are like a lot of comments. There's no way we're gonna be able to read these all.
Banker Paul is a fucking oracle because he's commented 6 hours ago.
Holy shit! Yeah, 6 hours ago he says, "Y'all sure did take a while, huh?"
This guy.
I'm gonna preemptively skim the ones that I feel are more relevant. This is not a hate on anyone. I'm just trying to get this episode wrapped up. So I'm gonna focus more on the people I know and the ones that aren't super long. So first, from Jack Rabbit, says, "Thank you so much for having me, boys. At the time I'm writing this comment, Toxic Positivity just broke 100 upvotes. It's also received a Spanish translation and a Russian translation. None of that would have been possible without you both reaching out to me and pushing me to give this a try. 2022 is going to continue being an incredible year for SCP. Next, I've just got to kidnap Darnell and force him to make a TikTok. Catch you later, you cute cadets."
Wow,
so thank
100
you.
upvotes. He doesn't need us anymore.
Yeah. I don't mean to brag, but Milk Jesus walked so fucking Toxic Positivity could run. No, I'm kidding. I'm really happy for you, Jack Rabbit. That's awesome. I'm super glad that went well. And it seems you guys really like this format. I don't know how much is like because we benefited from Jackrabbit's audience and how much is the format. But in general, I noticed people really seem to like this. We are going to try it again with a future guest who has announced themselves on Twitter. And if we continue to find interested parties in the community, we'd love to help like bridge some of that off-site gap and on-site where the two communities can like respect and like communicate with each other more. Because we know there's a lot of elitism sometimes on the on-site community, but when you get to know most of the people, they're really great. And I would love to help bring more people who want to become a part of the on-site community into that world. So if you're listening and you're interested, and you want to you're in the SCP community and you want to try writing an article for the first time, DM me. We can make something happen. Just saying. Right, Tanhoney?
Maybe.
Where can they DM you?
On Discord at Darnell #4942.
Please follow him on Twitter.
Please follow him on Twitter.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Thanks, placeholder. You just guaranteed yourself another guest episode in the future with that one.
Hell yeah.
Next, from Force to Reckon, we have, how can they prove they watched it up to this point? Let's see, they have to say, we're cooking with gas now and I am on fire. Also, yes, I tend to be a roller coaster. My brain cannot stay in one place and likes to flip around. Kind of like the logo.
What, like Bill Nye? Are you Bill Nye? Is that why it's Nye Brain?
Bill
You
Nye,
spelled
like a
it
guy.
wrong.
Also, the made-up password was my way of rewarding myself for finishing Sirs. Don't like it? Keep making your own. Also, Force, I know we're planning to do your podcast. That's still in the works. It might be delayed. We're trying to pick up the pieces of like getting our own channel back online, but we'll get back to you soon with that if you're listening.
It's been 2 weeks. He's had like been like a year hiatus.
This one, Callum Stewart. Callum Stewart says, "Phew, made it through the whole episode. Completely forgot that phrase to prove that, but bro, trust me."
I trust you with my fucking life, Callum.
Next from Cute Sweet Corgo. They have a long comment, but I'm going to read it because I am in love with Corgo. Corgo writes, writing this a little later after letting episodes sit in my brain for a sec. I loved how this all turned out.
This is what we call favoritism.
That's the name of this episode? Because of my one comment at the end in the comment reading? What should this episode be called? It should just be called like placeholder, right?
Episode.
Episode, yeah. Oh, that'd be good. Episode in all caps. Yeah, episode dash integer. That's it. That's the tweet.
There you go.
I love how this all turned out, and so happy for Jackie. Smile. This sure was done more calmly and in order than Milk Jesus. Glad Jackie had time to think about her own take on SCP writing. I really do enjoy more regular SCPs with some interesting lore around them, because it gives us all an inside look on works of the Foundation. Bad things happen on every job, and it's nice to see them outside of Tales. Also, the idea of bringing people on like this is very exciting! Password, we're cooking with gas now. I'm on fire, smile. Mr. 5000 says... Wait a minute, Tan? This you?
Well, there's a lot from Mr. 5000.
There's 3 of them, and I normally don't read multiple comments, but they're so funny I have to read them in order. Mr. 5000 says, "Hi, Tanhoney and Darnell. I've been waiting for ages to comment on this podcast. I listened to this podcast on my Alexa. Also, Mangekyo Sharingan. I'm also an anime fan.
I've never watched Naruto.
Password is, we're cooking with gas now. I am on fire."
I'm glad you listened to the whole thing. Mr. 5000.
I love Mr. 5000. What the fuck? Yeah, this is Tanhoney's ego got so... Tanhoney's ego got so large, like a bit of it had to split off to hold the weight. And it formed
He's like my more innocent self.
Yeah, the naive Tanhoney.
I did not discover SCP.
Did you ever watch... Did you ever watch Teen Titans, Tan? Do you know that episode with Raven where it's like all the emotions of Raven and there's like the nice Raven? That's Mr. 5000 for you.
Can someone draw that, like, the Tanhoney, like, awful avatar, but instead of the creepy smile, just like a nice, pleasant smile?
He's just happy. He gives you a flower.
I have a question for Mr. 5000.
Go for it.
Which one?
Why?
Why not?
That's what I said! Lan says, "This episode might be my favorite one you guys have ever done. Something about listening to Jackrabbit's experience with finding the wiki and joining the community, as well as our ideas on our first SCP, was so inspirational to me. It makes me want to sit down and write my own SCP. As always, Darnell is based, giving great advice on the right way to interact with the community and view your own work." I know. It's also really cool to see Tan's opinions on the first SCP process as an experienced author. Lan knows how to jerk us off just the right way. I love it. Great job to Hamiltoe on the thumbnail, Awuga. To Anomalous for the editing. To Jackrabbit for such an Dude, what the fuck is this? The Emmys? For such an ambitious and interesting article. And of course to Tan and Darnell for everything else. I'd really love to see another episode like this someday. Listening to the more interview advice focused episodes.
For buying the router.
I'd like to thank my dad for... No, never mind. Listening to the more interview advice focused episodes as a welcome break from just SCP articles. Yeah, Lan, we love you, man. Thank you. That's very nice. Okay, Microwaves Easy said... Oh, no, that's a long comment. Thought Experiments and Other Stuff says, holy shit, 2 hours. Calm down, boys. No.
I will never calm down.
Yeah, why don't you calm down, huh? Don't talk to me like that, okay? I'm a girl boss.
You're pissing me off. Calm down.
I think everyone needs to calm up.
Yeah, calm up! Nikki Laika says, was looking forward to hearing/watching this episode, and definitely am not disappointed. You're all so fantastic, and this was a really fun watch. It's inspiring to want to actually write my own articles I've been putting off as well, instead of feeling put off or intimidated. There's more help out there than I think a lot of people realize, especially if their exposure to the SCP community is mainly off-site. Exactly. That's what it's all about.
Precisely.
Nolan Tenholder says, I honestly got very giddy when you gave me a shout-out near the end of the episode, reading my comment. You are right, though. I'm basically a real-life shonen anime antagonist. Nice.
Thank you, Nolan Tenholder.
I want to read Insert
The
Clever...
weapons he holds.
Hold on, what is this? Insert Clever Name here says, I had a dream last night where y'all had Lord Stonefish on another episode, and you guys were reading this non-existent SCP that affected the real world. And as the episode went on, spookier and spookier stuff happened. What's that German meme you told me about that's like, every time they put it on, like a person dies? What is it?
Peep the horror.
Peep the horror? Yeah. Anyways, onto the current video that is real. This is the opposite of the Yurtcast episode. Instead of a chaotic shitstorm of people talking over each other as cowification is defined, we have a nice little chat about what it's like being a writer. Oh, and also Dr. Taylor's little bubbling bitch brain. Password, we're cooking with gas now. I am on fire. What'd you say, Tam?
Thank you. I was excuse me because you swore all of a sudden. That's not kind of podcast we do here.
Yeah, you're gonna get us demonetized. Dino Tales, actually, this one kind of hit me hard. I don't know why, it's so stupid. But, you know, he always writes, like, these really ridiculous long comments and, like, gives the recommendations. But just, like, the simple Merry Christmas, guys, thanks for the amazing content, all spelled correctly, like, actually kind of hit me. I was like, oh my god, that's so sweet. You know what I mean? It just, like, hit different.
I know.
Let's see. Brandon Hamilton says, Bloop Christmas! Andrew posted some timestamps.
Wait, Hamilton said that?
Yeah.
It's not Christmas anymore. Can we ban this guy?
Yeah.
I know he's made some pictures for us. It has enraged me.
I'm pissed off. Hamilton made like a joking anti-weed tweet on the DSCP account for some reason, and a bunch of stoners not only didn't like it, but they were like, "Did Darnell tweet this?" As if I'm like not the guy who smokes weed on the podcast, and it pissed me off so much.
And I will do it again.
No, don't do it again. I'm gonna revoke your freaking access if you get me in trouble.
I'm looking at it now. Do not smoke weed. Weed is bad for you.
Yeah, and someone was like, "Did Darnell tweet this?" And then someone else was like, "Yeah, okay, not true." I was just like, oh,
weed
God.
Makes you worse at writing SCPs.
I love how people that don't smoke weed like have no clue how weed works. They either like think it makes you brain dead, or like they think it makes you a philosopher or some shit, when like that is just not the case.
I don't give a swag about weed.
Damn. A bush from the island of Borneo says, only a few minutes in, and Jackrabbit's story is rather inspirational. I remember reading her SCP the other day, and quite enjoyed it. Can't wait to see the origin story for it. Password, we're cooking with charcoal now, I'm on fire. Also, Happy Christmas. I've never heard it as like Happy Christmas instead of Merry Christmas. It's kind of throwing me off.
Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas.
Yeah, but never like they got smushed. Merry Holidays.
Enjoyable winter solstice.
Oh, I thought you said Winter Soldier. Did you see my tweet about that too, Tan? I was like, Winter Soldier's pretty cool. They should have a soldier for every season. That one's too long. Okay, last one I'll read. AnAnomalousWriter says, longest ep yet, fun editing. Also, Jackrabbit's points were very insightful. P.S. Password is, we're cooking with gas now, and I'm on fire. So everyone, if your comments didn't get read, it was nothing personal, just trying to speed through it this week. We read, or at least I read them all personally on my own time, so they were all liked and appreciated.
I do, of course, before the episode, I do give Donna like a blacklist of people who we can't read comments from. Just because these like piss me off a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Comedy Man Kelp is on that list now. Sorry, Comedy Man.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, anything you want to plug or talk about, placeholder, before we close off?
Aside for me, fucking the rising star on the SCP Wiki, he's more than number 50 author, and still it does not have as much name recognition on the offsite community as me, which is really unfortunate. Harry Blank is the best author on the SCP Wiki right now. You should go read all of his shit. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. He's the steward of the On Guard 43 canon, which he's only been making over the past year and a half, and it is already one of the biggest canons on the site. So please go read it.
I was gonna say SCPD makes him sound like the messiah or something of the community. He seems to. I've seen him
a really
around.
good friend of mine.
Oh, well, yeah, sure. Go check him out. But do you have anything of your own you'd like to plug as well while you're here?
Oh boy. I have been working on an SCP Wiki series called the Admonition Series. It's got 3 episodes right now. 4th episode is coming out soon. It's all about a corrupt, evil version of the Foundation abusing the limits of technology in the SCP universe for their own gain, how it backfires on them, and how they deal with that backfiring.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, Placeholder. It was actually a real pleasure having you. I would love to have you sometime again in the future if you're interested, but it's time to end things now. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Very much, everybody.
I kick him back into his own time plane.